the other really, really big part of all this that all of these iPhone 16s are getting, because all the chips, A18 and A18 Pro support it, Apple Intelligence. Kat, we're kind of in a weird spot with Apple Intelligence. We're getting it, but we're not getting it right away.
Right.
What's happening? Hey, welcome to a special edition of the TechRadar Podcast that is coming to you from the Apple Podcast studio at Apple Park. This is very exciting. I'm Lance Ulanoff, editor-at-large for TechRadar, and I am joined by Jake Kroll, who's our managing editor for News TechRadar, Rich DeMuro, who is a KTLA tech reporter and nationally syndicated radio host, and over here, we have Katarina Mogus, who is a tech content creator and kind of a TikTok star. So, how are you guys all feeling? I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm slightly exhausted, okay? This was a very intense 24 hours. But I think that we want to start, first I want to get like the temperature of the room. I want to get a feel for, generally what you thought of the event. And we'll dig into some of the details after. So Kat, what's your feel? How are you feeling right now?
Of course, it was always exciting just being in that atmosphere. Like, it's crazy being at Apple Park during all these announcements. But I'm especially excited about the camera capture feature. Camera control.
Camera control, the button that I
Don't call it a button.
I know. We're not allowed to call it a button.
It's not a button, apparently.
But okay.
It seems like a button.
Let's not dig into this too far, but I will just say that it has two ways of working. You can press it goes down, and then you can do it gently and get a haptic response. So it's two things in once, and I get it's a lot of technology. All right, without jumping too far ahead, thank you for that, Kat, because you've started something. But Jake, how you feeling? Like, what did you think?
I think the most exciting thing that sticks out to me was probably Apple Watch. I think we had a really cool moment with Series 10, and that display I'm just still wowed by. But exhausted, I guess, is how I'm feeling a little bit. I feel it towards them. But
all right, I get it.
Some good stuff.
I get it. I feel you. Yes. Rich?
It's a lot to go through.
It really is.
It's almost like being back in school. You get like this presentation with all this information, and you're cramming to sort of digest it and then put it out again into the world, because we're sort of the conduit for people. They're like, hey, you were there. Tell us what was good, what was bad, what's interesting. And you have to form these opinions. And it's a lot of just like my brain is just, it's like that Beautiful Mind scene, It's just like, there's a lot of calculations going on. I'm like, is it a button or not?
Yeah, it's a fire hose of information. It's, and you have inside sort of this internal meter, like how much further do we have to go? Not that you're like not looking forward to it, but I'm like, okay, we've just gotten through Apple Watch. So somewhere AirPods coming in. And then of course we have all the iPhones. How many iPhones? And what if we have a surprise thing? And then I, hyperventilating a little bit, trying to like actually prepare for the next, and it was longer than I expected. Right?
Yes, it was.
Right?
It was longer. I think we're in the keynote for almost 2 hours.
It was definitely longer.
Yeah.
And then, just to give people just a little sense of what happens right after that, Tim Cook parts his prayer hands, because he does that beautiful moment, and he says, and now you are released. And then we all ran from Steve Jobs Theater to a giant room in the back where like millions of ants, everybody was there clustered around these beautiful products.
Yeah.
You just...
And it was more people this time.
It was.
It seemed like the most
way more
I've ever
people.
seen.
All right. I'm not crazy. I thought it was. I moved pretty fast for an old guy. I moved pretty fast up the stairs, got into that room, and there were already like 4 dozen people clustered around what I needed to see. But fine, let's talk about what we needed to see. All right. Let's talk a little bit. So let's start with what, it was called Glow Time.
It's Glow Time.
Glow Time. But it was really the iPhone 16 event, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they couldn't say that because it's not announced. Now it's announced. Let's talk about these phones. Jake, I believe you looked at all the phones. I mean, what's your like overarching feeling about how far Apple did or didn't move the needle here with these new phones?
It's a very good question. I think, they look very similar. I think there's some fun new colors, especially for the base 16s, but it feels like it's iterative would be, I think, the best way to describe it. I think the button's exciting. Camera control, and I will call it a button, I think, is probably the most exciting hardware change that I think people will really get excited about and kind of dig in. And it was fun to play with there. Like that's what I wanted to try the most.
Well, let's talk. So Rich, you must have played with the camera control, right? And
Yeah.
Maybe let's describe just a little bit, because I'm not sure everybody understands what this button is.
So imagine if you have, and you may not have noticed this on your phone, but there's like a little, like a millimeter wave antenna area on some of the phones. It looks like that, except they've turned it into a button on the other side of the phone.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was the thing I did not mention anything I wrote, and I realized that was like a replacement thing, because it actually took that spot.
But I mean, that's a very like nuanced thing that like probably only I noticed.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, that's what it feels like. They made that into a button, and it's a haptic feedback. It's like touch sensitive. It's pressure sensitive. They actually built this thing for the future. So it's not just a standard like click, boom, you're done. This thing can do all kinds of stuff. It responds to a swipe. It responds to a hard press, a light press, a double press. I mean, it's really like, it's very well thought out. And I think right now at the beginning, it's kind of like that action button. You have a functionality, but you can make this thing do anything. And I think app developers are really going to kind of claw into this. And, already we're seeing, they mentioned Snapchat is doing something, but you're just going to see a lot of functionality through this new added feature. And it did take a little bit of getting used to, though. I will say that.
Right. Because that's something that I noticed. And I talked to everyone I talked about this. And Kat, you may have seen this too.
Yeah.
Like getting the initial sort of difference between when you fully press and when you lightly press. Like, were you able to pick up on that?
It was a little difficult at first. I felt like, am I doing something wrong? But when I was playing around with it for maybe just a minute, I was able to get a groove of it. And even seeing people use it to zoom in and out, it's really seamless. And the zoom is also, it's not shaky and it's really controlled. So for me, if I'm vlogging, I think that's going to be a really useful tool for me. Quickly pull out my phone and do a nice clean zoom shot.
For people listening, they can't see what Kat just did with her hands, but I think it's kind of important. She held the phone in a landscape mode. And in some ways, I feel like the camera control was specifically designed for that landscape shot, because it becomes like a real camera, right?
Yeah.
You've got this button under your index finger. You can either press fully or you can press slightly, double press to access all those controls. Then you're sliding it back and forth, which is a perfect thing for the landscape. But of course, TikTok star Kat, you obviously would be shooting a lot of vertical video.
Yeah.
Will it work in that form?
Well, I think for the Pro Max or even like a larger device, it's kind of hard to hold in your hand. But with the 16 base model, it was a lot easier with one hand to do it in like a TikTok style. But I mean, I'm already so used to holding down the record button with my finger on the screen and sliding up and down. So maybe
it's muscle memory, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like you're so used to that, but I think like maybe in 6 months we should revisit.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, now I know I've got the flow down. Because I noticed yesterday, even when I was testing it, I kept going back to the screen. And I was like, wait, I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be using this.
I mean, I like that they have the visual cues on the screen that show you what's happening. I thought that was really important and useful. So Jake, I think what was interesting to me is that this button is not just about the camera, right? Like the whole thing about visual identification.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what do you think Apple is really thinking with this button? Because they call it camera control, but it seems like it's going to go beyond that.
Yeah. And to Rich's point, like it does feel like it's built for the future in that they opening up to developers, but when I think it's called visual intelligence,
right?
Or visual intelligence. It's like Circle to Search or Google Lens, but now Appleified. And I think like the example they gave was you could take a photo of like a concert that's coming up, and it would set a reminder for when that date is, or what kind of dog is this?
Right.
So I think it'll be interesting to see what that is like when it actually rolls out, because we couldn't try that yet. But it feels like they want to set it up as first use it for the camera. Then we'll see what maybe a few developers do with it. Like the Snapchat integration is kind of cool, but maybe TikTok will jump on it. And then we'll roll out this thing called visual intelligence. And then maybe it's like another action button. You can customize it further. Like
this button could be, maybe at some point we don't need the action button. I mean, basically, how many buttons can you have? Now, I was not when I heard the rumor about this, I was like, no, this is ridiculous. I don't like this. I think this is a dumb idea. And of course I was wrong. How often am I wrong? All the time. So I'm actually a fan. Even my brief time with it, I thought it was kind of cool. But it's sort of, because we talked about visual intelligence, kind of leads me to the other really, really big part of all this that all of these iPhone 16s are getting, because all the chips, A18 and A18 Pro, support it, Apple Intelligence. Kat, we're kind of in a weird spot with Apple Intelligence, right? I mean, we're getting it, but we're not getting it right away.
Right.
What's happening?
What's happening? I mean, I think Apple wants us to just get used to certain features right now so that, hey, I go and click and talk to Siri right away, get Siri to answer my questions. You know, I really like how we can sort of ramble on or even stop what you're saying and switch up your idea, and Siri will still be able to understand you and help you. So I feel like Apple's rolling it out slowly so we get used to it. It's in our everyday where we know we got to use it. We're loving it. And then more features will come when we're already, like, then we won't be overwhelmed by all the features, right? Even with camera control, we're getting used to it now. It's going to be a little muscle memory. So now when we have visual intelligence, we'll just already be streamlined.
All right. Well, Rich, let's play devil's advocate here, though. Is it that they want us to get used to it, or is it that it's not ready?
Like, it's not ready.
Okay.
It's not ready. 100%. Like, you've got Samsung heavily marketing into AI. They did it first. They're bringing it to all their old models. Obviously, it's a lot of Google technology, but a lot of their own as well. And it sold phones. Like, it showed that the numbers were up. Pixel, obviously, very much integrated with the AI stuff, and I think they did a great job. But I also think, and this is where Apple's slowness comes in, AI is this uncharted territory that is very scary. And it does a lot of things that we don't even kind of understand as the people using it, because sometimes you get a good result, sometimes you get a bad result. And I think Apple does not want that moment that any of these companies can have where it's like, hold on, your AI just did this. And so they're really testing this to make sure before it hits these phones, which a lot of people in the world use, we want to get it right.
Well, it's probably one of the reasons why the image stuff in particular, like, they've got cleanup will come quicker, but the image creation and Genmoji stuff seems like it's coming a little bit slower. And I get your point, because every single time we have generative image tools, someone makes it create something awful.
Yes. And how do you program into never, all the things that we can think of right now, how do you say, don't make an emoji of that? Right. I mean, really, it's like, how do you even program that? And you have to kind of take that into consideration, because all it takes is one headline, and we know how fast things travel, especially with TikTok and the rest of the world now. It's just, it's not a good look if that happens.
You know, I will say that this is one of the reasons, like on self-driving cars, which use AI, that there's issues with that, and there's issues with just putting them out there, because they struggle to program for every possibility. One thing humans are good at is turning on a dime when something unexpected happens. We're built for that in some ways. We're human, and that is the thing. AI, it's like, well, that's not in the programming. And how much heuristically can I actually understand situationally about this? So I get it. I get that reticence there. So I'm just curious, Jake, would you, because I've been asking this question of a lot of people, would you buy or upgrade to a new iPhone 16 simply for Apple Intelligence?
It's been on my mind. It's hard because it's not there yet, and you're upgrading for the promise of something that's coming, which I feel like is a trope that we generally don't recommend, right? Like as when we review these things. But I mean, the redesigned Siri is really nice, and like they're trying to shape use cases for it. Like, to your point, we haven't seen the custom emojis, but I think that'll be a lot of fun. Writing tools seems neat. Cleanup
seems hidden on the writing tools.
Yeah,
right. Finding them.
They're hard to find. This is true. But I'm tempted to say that I might. But I think for like an everyday person who's happy with maybe an iPhone 15, or let's say they have a 14, may not be needed.
I'm curious because there's obviously we haven't like got into specifics of how these phones are changing, the iPhone 16, but there's in some ways they're all kind of sliding toward the middle. And Jake and I have been talking quite a bit about how maybe the iPhone 16 is like a pro in disguise. But I wondered, Kat, first of all, if you have all these choices of different iPhones, right? I'm curious what your main shooter is, the thing that you use most to shoot, which model, and then I have a question for you about Zoom.
Okay, well, I'm using the 15 Pro Max, but this morning when I went on the Apple website, you actually can't purchase the 15 Pro series anymore.
Wow.
I didn't see it on there, or the 13s.
Oh, wow.
So
wait, so 14's left.
I think so.
Breaking news.
Yeah, the 15 Pro series isn't on there anymore.
Okay.
So if someone were to upgrade, I think the 16 base model would be the thing for them if
Right.
they're at a maybe 14 or 13 or under.
But you use the 15 Pro Max. And
Yes.
is part of the do you need the zoom? How important is zoom to you?
For me, if I'm vlogging on the go, I love the zoom. If I'm on a trip or I just want to capture the best content on a whim, I feel like I need to have the best cameras just because I'm also, showing people about them and comparing different devices. So I'm
Right.
using that as my daily device.
Right. All right.
Right.
So that makes sense. And so the iPhone 16 Pro now has 5x optical zoom. The iPhone 15 Pro only had 3x. So, Rich, is this, one, does that change like how people make a decision between the 16 Pro Max and the 16 Pro? Is that parity now really going to be important to people?
I think so. I love that we're seeing that trend because not everyone wants a huge phone. And the fact that you can get the same specs on both the Pro and the Pro Max, to me, obviously other than the screen and the battery, is a huge win for consumers. We saw Google do it with the Pixel 9, Pixel 9 Pro, and Pro XL. So now we know we're going to see Samsung do that next time around because right now they're the outlier. They do the Ultra, which has all their best stuff, but the rest of the phones really take it down a notch. So now I think we're going to see an Ultra in a bigger size and a regular size because I think consumers want that choice.
It's so interesting because ultimately now it's just coming down to screen size and battery capacity, right?
But some people just want if you don't want a tablet, some people just love to have the biggest screen all the time.
Yeah,
but let's say you're a
get it.
traveler and you travel with a tablet and you're on a plane all the time. Maybe you don't need such a big screen on your phone because you're like, I'd rather have this fit in my pocket. And when I want to watch a movie, I take a tablet out.
Unless you get a foldable.
Well, that's a whole nother. We gotta wait till next year's event. It's fold time.
It's full time.
So before we move on
Just kidding. That's not.
I know it's not.
We don't know if that's
Before we
Don't
move
announce
on to the next product, I want a quick thumbs up or thumbs down on the new color. I think it's called Desert Sand. I'm going to give you my vote first. I'm not a fan of Desert Sand. To me, it's like I love the black, titanium black. It's amazing. Desert Sand and cat. Oh,
Like,
very.
I would put a case on it, but I was underwhelmed.
Okay. Rich?
I like it. I mean, I don't really put much stock into the color because I put a case on my phone. So,
Isn't that funny?
but I think
All
it's
that
nice.
work by Apple.
I know
Thanks.
you don't like it. I know. I already
No.
saw your headline.
I know. I'm like, that wasn't mine.
Oh, it
that
wasn't
was
yours?
someone else.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, I know
Oh.
what you
I saw a headline.
That was a little Jake.
I think I'm in the middle, like Kat. It gives me rose gold vibes from the iPhone 6S, which I like.
Have you guys seen the absolute drama online of everyone saying that the 6S rose gold was the best color of all time,
I
and that
disagree.
they wish that color came to the 16 Pro series? And I do have to agree on
I'm
that.
so glad you mentioned that, only because, I remember when that came out. I worked with someone who was literally obsessed with that color.
Yeah.
And it was the apex rose gold. It was like they had ascended. It was, I couldn't tell you how excited they were at every level. And I think that wasn't there an MacBook Air that came out in rose gold as well?
It was
So
a
there this-
phenomenon.
right. So it was a period of time where all this rose gold, and they've never really recreated that tone, that particular color again. So I find that fascinating. And I knew you'd bring stuff like that to this. That's why you're here. Because I have no idea what's going on online sometimes. I miss all the big trends. All right. I want to move on to something because Jake
That's
and I
not
had
true. You're very on top of things.
Got the
we'll
trends.
see.
You're making the trends.
Jake and I had a lot of fun with the Apple Watch Series 10. So just to set the stage for a second here, I don't know if you guys remember, but as of yesterday, it was the exact 10-year anniversary of the Apple Watch launch. I was there for that big deal, crazy event, big white box that we didn't know what it was. It was a building size. That was where they had the Apple Watch. In any case, it was a really big moment for Apple, first entrance into wearables. So for this 10-year anniversary, we were kind of hoping for something special. Jake, I'll let you start, only because I think you really had some strong feelings about the Apple Watch Series 10 and whether or not they did it proud.
Yeah, I would say they did. I think going into it, the rumors and the speculation, I didn't kind of know what to expect. Thinner and a bigger screen. I think it looks stunning. It's much thinner, and I think that matters for something that's on your wrist. But I'd say the biggest surprise to me with the screen was it's this. I think it's called a wide angle OLED. But when you're looking at like your wrist, you can actually like make out the ticking hand going. Or,
it's called the second hand, by the way.
The second hand, that's right.
I'm going to help you with that.
Thank you. I need that. But it's much more expansive. Like when I saw it, you can read like a full extra line of text on it with calculator. The buttons are easier to press. So I think it has a similar look, and I think it's clear Apple is, as you said, they're polishing the Apple here. They're not giving up on this rounded square watch design. 10 years down, it feels like they're really sticking with it.
For one hot second during the reveal, I was like, oh my gosh, have they gone circular? Is it a round? I was like looking at, but then as it kind of came together, it's like, okay, no. It's still the same.
They said it in the thing, our radical design change or something.
Right,
They use terminology.
So I got excited. I was like, I still really like what they've done. Kat, did you get to try the largest size? I'm just curious.
I did. And I'm usually not one for wanting larger sizes. I like that minimalistic look on jewelry. But I actually really like it because it's so thin and light. And even the new watch bands are really light. So I would actually use it every day, especially if I'm wearing a fancy dress or going out. I usually don't grab for my Apple Watch because it's clunky and might not match. And I know a lot of people online are saying the same thing. So when I posted yesterday about like, hey, this is looks like jewelry, but also has all the amazing capabilities from Apple Watch, people are going crazy. They say they want to have their hands on it. They would wear it more often with all different kinds of outfits.
I kind of felt similarly. Rich, did you get to try it?
I did, yeah. I would agree. I think that it's like much more refined. I always give my wife a hard time when she's going out. I'm like, we're going out for like a date or something, and she's wearing like this Apple Watch that does not fit in any way, shape, or form to like, a nice dress and like jewelry. It's like this Apple Watch that's like a rubber band around it. You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, that's for like the gym. But when I saw the watches and all the bands they had, I really do think they did a good job in making it fit more into kind of that fashion world, and I'm not like a fashion person, but I love the black titanium. I think they did a great job there. And even just the standard, like the glossy black 10 they made, that is like, it's so nice. It like looks like a nice timepiece.
It looks really elegant and sleek.
Yeah.
Rich, you're very fashionable. Very.
Fashionably late sometimes.
So I'm actually a watch collector. I have a lot of old analog watches, and I've actually started in the last year, started wearing them again. I even started wearing it at a 40-year-old Casio LCD because it was fun.
Nice.
Then I recently, because the Google Pixel Watch 3 came out, and one of the things they did is they shrunk the bezel. Now, they've always been a round circular watch, but it's a better watch, and I was like, oh, this has some of that elegance. So when I saw the new Apple Watch Series 10, I was like, it kind of spoke to me because they had achieved something similar. They really shrunk down the bezel. The screen's much bigger. So it looks like this big but beautiful teardrop. I like to say teardrop because it's just, if a teardrop drops on a surface and it's got that rounded thing, it's nothing but that. I'm doing a little ASMR right now. Yeah. So if it drops. But I do get that it was elegant, and I do, it doesn't always, to do something special for an anniversary edition, it doesn't always take a full-scale redesign. It takes moving the needle, right? Feeling like you've gotten to a new place. And I think with this Apple Watch Series 10, I think that's what we're looking at. Now, of course, we'll have to see like what the uptake is. Like,
I was going to say, are people going to upgrade because of that? I feel like the Apple Watch is one of those, and even the iPhone at this point, they're so good. That's the problem, is that I see people, like a majority of people I talk to, do not, if they're outside this tech world, they do not have the latest.
Right.
And it's a matter of, okay, I either have a great upgrade deal that's coming my way, or something breaks, or somehow they're just like, well, it's been a while. It's a birthday coming up. Let me get a new one. I feel like that, especially with the Apple Watch, is like people are on like very earlier generations that, could use an upgrade.
Yeah, you know what forced an upgrade in my house is the amount of storage space on my wife's first Apple Watch 3. Still working fine, except for it kept saying I can't update to the latest OS, even though it supported it, because they didn't build enough memory inside of it. I mean, Jake, I'm sure you agree that like Apple builds really good products that last a really long time. And do you sense that there's some tension there that Apple really needs and wants people to upgrade? I mean, we did have that moment during the keynote, right, where they were showing us you can get these amazing rebates.
Especially on the iPhone front, they were pushing those trade-in deals. I think they're hoping for that term like a super cycle, right? They want to see that, and I think they recognize that maybe the Apple Intelligence features they're not here at launch. But not everybody may want them. Like to your point, Rich, AI, there's a lot of unknowns. So I think they want to help to encourage that this year, but they don't have something for that for the watch. Like I know people online, they offer the iPhone upgrade program to get people a new phone every year.
Right.
They don't. There's no equivalent of that for the watch at all.
Apple's not a bundler, right? Yeah. They're not. It's like Samsung is a master bundler, right? Yeah. So he's get this, get that, get this, we'll throw in this. You want a puppy? We'll give you that too. I mean, they do that all the time. At Apple, buy this, then buy that, then buy this. I mean, Kat, do you think that's a mistake? Do you think that there'd be like really massive uptake if they offered some bundles?
Well, I personally love having a full Apple ecosystem. So they might not offer the bundle, but I'm going to create it in my house.
That is such that's such an astute point, because that's one of the reasons Apple kind of wins in this little war sometimes, because there is no better ecosystem. I mean, I feel that especially when I switched from using a Windows laptop to the MacBook Air, and everything suddenly became easier. Right? So I really do get that. You're exactly right. So maybe they don't have to.
They don't have to.
They know they're going to get you eventually, because when you just try to AirDrop from your iPhone to your Windows computer, you're like, what? This doesn't work.
This doesn't work.
And the next thing you know, you're trying the workarounds and you're like, never mind. Next time you're in the market, you're going to get a MacBook Air. And it's, it works perfectly.
A moment of frustration, then you go to the store, purchase something.
Yeah. Depending on what money you have, because obviously,
Yeah, of course.
Everything's not cheap. So something that wasn't there, we're talking about the Apple Watch, and one thing that I really thought was going to happen did not happen. Maybe it still will, who knows. An Apple Watch SE update in particular, new material and a new price. Rich, did you hear the same rumors, or was that me imagining things?
I did not hear the rumors, but I don't even know what happened with the SE. I'm not up on it. Did they not update it?
I don't think that, Jake, did they do anything to it?
I don't think we got a single thing with it.
I think the consumer buying the SE is kind of like, it's that entry level product that maybe doesn't need as many updates over time. And I think this time around, they really put the effort into the flagship 10 series. And the fact that it comes in, the smaller, bigger sizes now, they're like a millimeter bigger. I think that's where they want the emphasis this year instead of that older generation.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Maybe they'll launch it with the SE3 or 4.
I do think I'm missing the SE, because that was the perfect device that I gifted to my grandparents. And when I posted that online, everyone was like, that's an amazing idea, perfect for younger children or even for your grandparents as a gift.
So I guess, there was some thought that Apple could have done like a plastic Apple Watch SE, and it might have been in sort of a gateway wearable for kids, because there is a market right now. There are a number of different brands that are selling wearable smartwatches or something like that for kids, and they run like $39, $50. They're somewhere in that range.
They're all horrible. No, seriously, they're terrible.
All right, take it from Rich, folks.
Have you found a good brand?
No.
I
think you're right. I think you're right. But if Apple had done it, I don't think it would have been horrible.
Oh no, they would kill it. I mean, they would literally.
Right.
Yeah.
I personally don't think kids need smartwatches. That's just me.
That's a whole nother.
I grew up playing sports.
Okay.
So for me, I think an Apple Watch would have been amazing to track me playing soccer, running, how fast I ran, like all of that. So I think on an athletic standpoint, growing up, doing sports as a kid would have been really awesome, or even having like fitness goals against my sister, for example, or other teammates. there's definitely a market for it. I could see it.
All right. That's interesting. I had not thought about that, and I could
parents
see
do like to track their kids.
they do.
Too.
They do.
that's
I mean,
like
I was a coach of my one of my kids played softball for quite a while, and there was a lot of like stats and and trying to see analyzing their swing and all that. So. All right. I hadn't thought of it that way. Thanks, Kat. All right, so I want to switch gears a little bit. Listen up, folks. We're going to talk about AirPods. All right. So a lot of really interesting stuff happening here. Kat, what do you think was the sort of the biggest thing, the biggest news about AirPods yesterday?
Of course, it had to be that you can use your AirPods as a hearing aid.
Yeah, that is.
That video honestly made me emotional, watching the woman put in the AirPod and being able to hear her family. It really felt.
I heard that sound.
Yeah.
When I was writing about it today, I heard the sound you're talking about of and of course, because I'm doing 1,000 different things during the keynote, I wasn't as dialed in, but I heard that sound and I looked up at the woman and I could see that the woman on the screen had some emotion. I was like, what is happening? It's like, I mean, Rich, this is a big deal, right? Though there's reason for Kat and other people's reaction.
Yeah. No, I think this is the kind of stuff that being a big company like Apple and having so many products in people's, hands and ears, it's like they can turn on this feature that literally will change lives. I mean, if you don't have a pair of AirPods 2 Pro 2, which, what are they, $279? I mean, for $279, if you don't have it, you now have hearing aids. That's incredible. And also something they mentioned sort of like about the idea that people are okay with AirPods in your ears. Like you see them, you don't really think twice.
Right.
So people that may be hesitant to get hearing aids because of this, maybe social stigma, whatever, they just don't want to accept that they have a hearing issue. The fact that you can put these in and they're tuned through the software, to me, is incredible.
It's like secret hearing
Yeah,
aids, right?
secret hearing aids.
This is something where you can be getting better sound and everyone will just think you're listening to a podcast like this one, of course, hopefully.
They also mentioned that even if you don't know you have maybe you're hearing impaired, that you can do a test and find out. So I think that's an absolute game changer. I mean, being able to understand your ear health is really important. And for Apple to make that step, I mean, that was the biggest news for me.
And it is, they mentioned this multiple times, it is sort of clinically tested. This is not just Apple guesswork. They've clinically tested. 2, they're going to get FDA approval on this thing. So you will get 1, critically, the hearing test to find out whether or not you have a hearing issue. And if you live in my house, you're told every day that you don't hear anything anyone says. So
I hear that too.
So maybe
I can hear that.
Right.
So you guys are upgrading for sure.
I can hear the criticism.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear it all the time. But so you've got the test, and then you have the ability, or you can send it to your doctor, and they can do something, or maybe you go and you actually get regular hearing aids. So
I feel bad for audiologists though.
Yeah.
Because I mean, on the one side, and we haven't gotten to sleep apnea, but I feel like a lot of people are going to be self-testing and it's like self-diagnosing, which is great, but it's like a lot of people are probably sitting there like, oh, my business is going to be good or bad because of this.
Yeah. Jake, it's kind of an interesting trend, right? That like Apple wearables are here to test a lot of different, and especially now in the health and fitness area, they're like constantly tracking and testing, doing things that normally I'd have to go visit a doctor, a specialist for.
Yeah, it's a new trend, and I think they always kind of root it back to it's not a diagnosis. You still got to go see a medical professional. So hopefully that gives audiologists and other professionals in that space a little more
take the extra step.
Yes.
But it's having information. And it's an alert that maybe you have AFib or something, and that you should go check that out. And one of the things that Tim Cook loves to talk about when he's on stage is that some of this technology is life-changing. I mean, it runs from wearables and health technology to things like SOS messaging, where they're saving people. Also on the AirPods front, less health-related, but so we have the AirPods 4, correct?
New AirPods 4, two models.
And what did what's the big deal with them?
So basically, it's the new entry level and mid tier. But I think what's really exciting is they have the H2 chip, so it's trickling down some of those really nice pro level features. But they are open ear design, so it's kind of the continuation of the classic AirPods that started the
ones that people said looked ridiculous, but they all bought them.
Everybody bought them. Instant hit. So they're shorter, they're a little more compact. The case is really tiny. And there's a pair, I think it's $129. $129, and then $179. And for the more expensive one, you get noise cancellation, which kind of blew my mind in the demo space. It was able to block out a very, very noisy, crowded space. And when I played music, I was just happy.
I mean, and that's without sealing your
seal.
ear. That's kind of crazy. Kat, did you get to try them out at all?
Yeah, and you know what? I am not the biggest fan of the seal. It sometimes hurts my ears on really long flights. I have to take them out. But these were very comfortable. Super light, small, compact design. You could just put them in any pocket and go. I was really impressed.
Yeah, the key with AirPods to me, and I use the Pros all the time, is getting that right fit. And, Apple talked so much about like testing so many different ears. I mean, the thing is, ears to me seem almost as unique as fingerprints. There's no two they're like. So when I would tell people early on that AirPods fit in my ear, or they don't pop out, or even AirPods Pro fit in my ear, and I would kind of be a bit of a jerk about it, because I'm like, well, they stay in my ears. I'm like, well, dude, your ear is not the same as that person's ear, or that person's ear, or that person's ear. And I think that's all of these companies I've spoken to who are in this space. This is the thing they're focused on, is trying to get something that has all the different possibilities that can fit the widest number of ears properly and stay in. So I am curious. So are we all AirPods Pro? You said that you often don't use AirPods Pro.
No, I always do, because I love the adaptive noise cancellation and transparency, all of it. I love the different features, but I think I'm going to go with the base model this time around.
Base with ANC?
Base with ANC.
Okay, so right. So not the entry level one, but the next level up.
Level.
That's interesting. That sounds like I feel like we're going to have a spark of buying that, because it falls in that really interesting space. And Rich, I assume, what are you, like a AirPods Pro?
I actually am a earbud swapper. So I'm testing so many that I actually have a lot of favorites. I think AirPods are great if you have the iPhone. The Pros especially, and I always say, kind of like what you say, they kind of, I love when you put any earbuds in your ears and they almost are like they just stick in, and it's like they're not coming out. Because you can tell very quickly. I'm sure you test a lot of these things. Yeah, it's like one shake of the head. If you feel that looseness, it's like they're not good, and it's like you'll never wear them again. And we have the ability of getting all these things to test. For consumers, it's like, it's really frustrating when you get a pair of earbuds that you bought at Target or whatever, and it's like they just don't feel good. You're like, I got to return these.
Yeah, they don't, and they also have all different strategies for, like, it's not just the little cup, the rubbery cup. It's the other stuff they put on to sort of twist in. It'll stay. Yeah. And I have like an old pair of Samsung ones that are wired that I use on flights, and I can never figure out which ear is which, because they have this bizarre sort of twisting. It doesn't make any sense. Jake, are you a Pro?
I'm a Pro user currently. I'm very intrigued about the 4s though, with the ANC.
Yeah, I kind of am too. I got a chance to try a little bit of a demo too, and I was like, oh. Because I didn't believe. I'm like, look, if you don't seal, how can you cut out the sound? I just didn't think it was possible. So there's a couple other things I wanted to ask you guys, and anyone can jump in here. Do you feel like there's anything that Apple left? There was a lot, but I'm curious if there was something where you're sitting there and go, but they didn't. Why didn't they say about that thing, the thing I care about?
I noticed that they didn't mention phone cases.
Well, they did. They did with just with the ones for the ones that support the camera control.
Okay, we didn't get to see them, right?
Did we?
I think it's because they're downplaying the fine woven discontinuation.
Oh, yes. Well, because they made a really big deal of that, and then that didn't work out.
So we have the silicone and the clear.
I'm just curious though, why for you are cases so important?
I feel like, I don't know, they express my personality. I love having different colors to go with different outfits or just swapping them out.
So you do a lot of that. You actually like I'm like it must be something with age because I'm like literally I put a case on and 12 months later that case is still on.
Oh, come on.
I am
That's so boring.
No.
Exactly.
You gotta have
I
fun
am
with it.
You gotta change your case,
I change my case
I
quite
am
a bit.
so oh
Yeah.
no, I don't because I get very like
Attached.
yes, attached, but also it's about like I have like a special control on the back of mine. All right, I am really
What?
boring. All right, so anybody else? Is there anything that you were expecting you didn't see? I felt like I think I saw everything. I don't think they talked about any new store openings, which I thought they might, because I think on the same day there was like one opening.
Del Amo,
Yeah. They didn't
Southern
talk,
California.
which I was a little surprised about because they often do that.
It's the first first domestic opening of a new location in a couple of years. Not a move. Like they've moved a lot of stores,
Yeah.
as malls are kind of like moving around. They've moved locations, but this is the first new build.
That is interesting. And do we feel like, did they mention Vision Pro? Did they give us any sort of
I
update?
think like one little like nod to it with that the 16 can now take spatial photos and that you could play it back on there.
Yeah,
But
that's
they
right.
didn't-
All the 16s.
Yeah,
because
all
they
of them.
even, they've been in this process of moving cameras around
Yeah.
just for spatial photography. Have you guys all tried spatial photography and videography?
Cool.
Yeah, no, I was using it this summer in Croatia. I took photos and videos of family members that live back home. So when I came back to Canada, I got to put on my Vision Pro and see it. And it honestly makes me emotional watching. It really
All right,
does.
and I've had a similar experience with some of that. Rich, have you?
I have not really taken the time to try it.
And you have young kids.
Yeah, I
mean,
probably
you-
should, but I see
yeah.
them in real life, so I don't know.
Yeah, but now you can
there
go
you go.
back.
I know. I
The-
guess
right,
it
right.
would make me sad though. Like even like the birthday candle one, like as kids grow up so fast. It's like
Yeah.
just watching it on their keynote. I'm like, tissue.
Aw.
It is. It's like you're looking at like 3D video. It's
I know.
You know.
I know. That was literally the first time I did it. That's the same, I used on certain. I've tried to pick photos I think that would elicit some sort of emotional because I'm like, what's the point? But then it's always been a little bit of like a gut punch. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And I have my children are adults. So of course, if I see these of them like 3D images, because you can now take any photo and turn it into
Yeah, that was an
spatial.
update, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's and so that can really rock your world if your kids are grown up, So I'm probably the only one who can really experience that at this moment. All right, so is there anything else that we were hoping, Jake?
We didn't get anything on services. I just realized we didn't hear any updates about Apple TV Plus or
Yeah.
Music Fitness Plus. There was really nothing there.
Yeah, and
much.
I feel like I've always been torn on whether or not they would do that more for WWDC and some of the platform stuff. But I agree, it's a moment to sort of show how, again, the ecosystem and hardware and software come together to sort of do all those things. All right, we're gonna start wrapping this up, but I'm gonna ask each of you whether or not whatever you're using right now, assuming you're not like deep in the tech world, would you upgrade? Jake, would you upgrade to one of these new phones? And if so, which one?
I think I would probably go for a 16 Pro. I like that one the best right now. I think that there's feature parity across them now, so you don't have to get the big phone to get the best camera. And I think we're second year into this titanium build. It felt really nice yesterday again. And you get the bonus A18 Pro. You can game on it, hardware
Yeah.
accelerated ray tracing, all that cool stuff.
Rich?
I think if what you have works, stick with it. If you want AI, obviously, I'm personally
You mean
like,
Apple Intelligence?
yeah. I personally am all in on that. Like I to me as like a tech person, and I get it, we're talking about regular people, but if you like this idea of having the cutting edge stuff, like you want AI, Apple Intelligence on your phone. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not upgrading, or if you have the 15 Pro, you're fine. But if anything before that, and you're kind of into this AI stuff, got to go upgrade.
Kat?
I'm going to upgrade to the 16 Pro Max. I love having a larger display because I'm always editing on my devices and on the go. So to be able to shoot best quality photos, videos, and now with spatial audio, that's going to be a game changer in my workflow and my content creation process.
Yeah, and there is, speaking of content creation, since you mentioned it, there's some wild stuff on the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max with cinematic slow-mo and the audio stuff that you can do.
4K 120.
Yeah, which you can step down to different speeds, and it's not like when I used to work with slow-mo, it seems like it's a big change here. You used to have to find the spot where you can okay, make this part slow-mo, and you're moving this little dial along back and forth, and it's kind of maddening. And now it's like this speed thing just drops down, and you can kind of choose, and it looks pretty cool. Between that and the ability to isolate some audio out of bad audio. And I think all of us sitting here shoot video, and all of us have been in situations where we forgot that mic, didn't have it. This could be a game changer if it actually works as advertised. I mean, I'm kind of excited about it. All right. So the good news, folks, is that we don't have to go through this again tomorrow. It was very exciting, but we're all kind of exhausted. And I want to thank you all for joining me on this very special TechRadar podcast. And you can find everybody, Kat and Rich and Jake, online, all their various channels. Check them out. They're amazing. And don't forget to check out TechRadar.com because we have tons of reporting about the big Apple iPhone 16 event. And thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you guys next time.